Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. And I'm eager to share some time with you this morning. Today, I want to talk about how it's not the market. Like all those things we're feeling, our challenges in our business, the headwinds. I want to encourage you to let you know that your results are not about the market. And to do so, I'm going to share a story from Horst Schulze, and I'm also going to share some comments from Shant Banosian from last week's Mastermind Summit, and then I'll wrap up with a few thoughts of my own. So let's get to it now. As you know, I'm a seminar conference junkie. I've been to hundreds of them, and some of the best conferences or seminars I've ever been to were some of Todd Duncan's sales mastery back in the day, back in the early 2000s. And you know, I love those conferences back then because back then, whether it was his conference or others, like Todd would have three or four top tier keynote speakers per day. It was incredible. You would have John Maxwell speaking the same day as you might have Tim Sanders speaking, and you might have Horst Schulze speaking, right? Like it'd be 3 days of, you'd have literally 9 or 10 top tier keynote speakers. And back then too, the keynote speakers weren't so keen on selling their product. They weren't there to sell their box of goods. They weren't there to sell their coaching. They weren't there to sell their club. It is true that they were trying to increase, their book sales, but they weren't on the stage for their hour selling stuff. Now they would have it in the atrium selling their books, but it wasn't about that. It was about getting their message accepted and sharing their message. So I want to say back maybe 2001, Todd had Horst Schulze speak at Sales Mastery, and I didn't know who the person was. And it's interesting because he's German and speaks, especially back then, with a very heavy German accent, very heavy. And what that means is if you want to listen to him, you really have to pay attention. I mean, you can't just be, multitasking or passive attention because his accent's so heavy. And I think because of that, I got a lot more out of it. And I remember back then in 2001, and I was just completely enraptured with what Hertz was saying. But he told a story about opening the first Ritz-Carlton in Boston. And if you don't know, Horst Schulze is known as the number one hoteler in the world. He's worked at Hilton and Hyatt before becoming a founding partner in the Ritz-Carlton. And from there, he went on to start his own luxury brand, Capella. He's absolutely an expert in customer service and hospitality. If you ever get a chance to hear him speak, he doesn't speak often anymore, but if you ever get a chance, do it. YouTube him. I think his two YouTube videos from Liberty University are excellent. It's a 2 hour session that they divide in half. If you want to just absolutely get a ton of knowledge, listen to Hertz. But in the talk I heard back in 2001, Hertz shared a story about when they opened the Ritz-Carlton in Boston. And what had happened is that their initial occupancy was really low. And Hortz is kind of a taskmaster. If you ever hear him, you'll get he's very much a taskmaster. He's very much about execution. And so, as I think it was their first hotel or second hotel, he was paying close attention to what the occupancy rates were, and he would have a weekly call with the general manager of the hotel. And so, it's like early January or late sometime in January, and they're having a call, and Hertz is really frustrated because their occupancy is so low. And the general manager starts to explain to Hertz. He goes, Hertz, don't you understand? Have you been watching the news? We've had record blizzards. We've had 20 days of blizzards in the last 30. There's 12 feet of snow outside the hotel. And Horst gets angry and hangs up on the guy. He's so frustrated, right? And so, and by the way, I normally tell this story with a horrible German accent, which I have no skill in doing. I'm gonna spare you that today. But the general manager calls Horst back, goes, "Hey, we must have got disconnected. I'm so sorry." And he goes on to explain, "Have you seen the news? Have you seen, people can't fly in. The airport's nearly closed. We're almost out of business because nobody's traveling." And it seemed like Hortz said some obscenities and hung up again. And this goes on several times where the general manager is giving Horst excuses why their occupancy is in the 40s, not in the high 80s or 90s. And so on the final call, before Horst ends up hanging up again, by the way, the general manager calls back and Horst goes, "Hey, quiet, be quiet, listen to me. Now, tell me, the Four Seasons is across the street from our hotel. How is the Four Seasons doing?" And the general manager once again jumps in. "Oh no, they're the same thing. Their occupancy is so down. It's so far down, and they're the same thing. They're in the 40s and 50s, just like us." And Horst gets angry with the general manager. He goes, and he says essentially, and once again I'm going to avoid the accent. He goes, "See, this is what you don't understand. As long as our competition has one customer, it's not the market." Right? Powerful, right? If my competition has one customer, then it's me. A really, really, really good point, right? I love that story. And it's so true. Today, when we want to blame the market, okay, volumes drop from 4.1, 4.2 trillion down to 1.3, devastating drop, or 1.6 or 1.7 this year, devastating drop. But as long as your competition is doing one deal, it's not the market, right? It means your competition beat you on that deal, right? And so it's not the size of the market, it's what is our competition doing to beat us. And I really just love that thought. And that's such a powerful thought to carry us through this market. And I was reminded, and I shared this story with you because I was reminded of that when I was listening to Shant speak from stage as a keynote on Thursday afternoon at Mastermind Summit, because he started his talk with the same thing, with the same kind of attitude. Now, understand, in Shant, he's the most humble, authentic. He's almost to the point of being raw. It's incredible, and he just speaks truth. Once again, he's another person I'd pay to go hear speak. But and he, in a crazy kind of humble way, he goes, as he's introducing himself, because you kind of have to, he goes, I'm one of you. I'm just like you. I've funded $10 billion in the last 12 years. I've helped whatever crazy number was, 36,000 families buy a home. I go, yeah, Sean, you and I are just the same. Just like Babe Ruth and I both have hit, 550 home runs, together. We're King Kong. But I love the way that Sean starts that. But he then he went into his talk, and this is the part that made me think of Horst. He goes, "Look, I don't let the economy dictate my outcome, essentially. Because I don't let the economy dictate my outcome." And he goes, "Back in 2022, when business, when volume dropped 50%, I increased my activity 50%. I increased my mindset 50%. I increased my focus 50%. And then when the market dropped another 15% the next year, I increased my workload 15%, my activity, my mindset, my disciplines, my health." He goes, so I don't let the economy dictate my results. The economy will do what it will do, but I will do what I will do, which is just simply awesome, right? And Shant went on to go and describe his recipe for success, which is incredible. He makes it sound, he says, "Look, I got no, magic sauce here. I got no, secrets to give you." And then he'll give you a plan that is as comprehensive as any, that is full of activity. And with him, it's 100%. It's so much mindset. It's so much discipline of what he puts in front of himself and around himself. And he's just really seriously a joy to be around and listen to. But Sean's right. So just like Horst says, if your competitor has one customer or one deal, it's not the market, it's you, right? Because for that one client, your competitor beat you, right? And for any loan officer, no matter what your size, you have a fraction of your market, a tenth of the market, 100th of the market, right? And so you should never say, "Gosh, volume in the market's down. It's really tough. There's a lot of headwinds," when you have a handful of deal out of thousands. It just means other people have beat you thousands of times, and you are empowered to go and get the business that you want if you face that. And that kind of brings me back a little bit to yesterday's topic, which was which mortgage model is going to win in the future. And I shared with you that I was listening to executive panel, and there's 4 executives on the panel, each from a different discipline inside the mortgage market. And each one of them had the same answer, that it's not the model. It's not going to be a bank or credit union or broker or an IMB. Doesn't matter in winning. The only thing that matters is winning is the quality and skill of the loan officer. It's the loan officer that determines success or not. And that's like, that's like a duh, like duh, it's the LO stupid, that's what matters, which is really true. All 4 of those executives are super true. And which got me to thinking, that loan officers truly do differentiate any company's not only the loan officer's success, but any company's success or failure, right? And so companies like mine, like others, our goal is to make sure that we support our loan officers so that they can be as successful as possible. That's what every company's goal is, right? And we do so in a way that gets us a fair return. But one of the things that I'm starting to see, I'm happy to see, and I'm just sensing, is that there's a sea change now in the psychology of a lot of loan officers. For the first 18 months or 12, 18 months of this changing market, loan officers, to me seemed to be victim of the market, and they seemed a little bit overwhelmed with what was happening. And they blamed all sorts of circumstances like the market or their company or bad luck or whatever it happened to be. And that wasn't really productive for them to do. But in the last few months, the last quarter, I'm really sensing where loan officers are starting to surrender to the market. And when I say surrender, I don't at all mean give up. I mean surrender to the reality that things have changed, and that the path forward, the path to the success and the abundance that we want is inside of us, not outside of us. And this is a massive change, and it's such a positive sign, right? That I no longer blame my company because of whatever dragon I think that's dragging me down from them, whether it's rates or fulfillment or support or integrity or transparency or all those things, right? That doesn't matter. What matters as a loan officer is my personal performance. Am I good enough to win today? Am I good enough to beat my competitors so that it's not the market, it's me that's driving my results, right? And so as I'm out and about, I'm at these conferences, I travel, I talk to a lot of loan officers, my sense is they're seeking answers now. They're no longer being the victim, they're no longer being passive, but they're like, okay, the reality is we probably live in a $2 trillion market, 1.7 to $2 trillion market. The reality is we're probably going to have sustained interest rates at 6.5%, right? Maybe they end the year at 7%, next year around 6.5, 6.25. That's our reality. Well, how then do I thrive? How do I get what I want inside of that reality? How do I get better with my words? How do I get better with my sales process? How do I get better with my value proposition? How do I get better with my tech adoption, right? How do I get better with my care and concern of my clients, right? Those are what's going to drive results, not the market. Now, what happened is for a couple of years when it was just absolutely crazy, and I would say that, as everyone, for a good 10 or 12 years, since 2010, 2011, we loan officers, the industry has been running a downhill race, right? It's been, for the most part, with just a couple of bumps, improving interest rates and increasing volume. And in that environment, probably 70, 80% of loan officers have only been in that environment where rates are decreasing and volumes increasing, and I call that a downhill race, and they became really good at running that downhill race. But when the market started to get tougher, and when it turned from a downhill race to uphill race, they weren't conditioned to win in that market, and they were completely bewildered because they've never ran uphill, and they're like, what the heck? I'm a 5-minute miler, and now I can't even do 15-minute miles. What the heck, right? And they had no point of reference, no perspective. And so I don't blame people for being completely bewildered and overwhelmed. But it seems like we're getting past that now. We're going, okay, I'm going to have to learn how to run uphill. What do I need to do to win running uphill? And they're seeking those solutions, and I think that is awesome. So I want to just encourage everyone, especially if you're a loan officer, own your own market. It's you control your destiny. And I want to wish everybody a great day. I hope you enjoyed this go live. I will be back tomorrow about this time, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks so much. Bye.